When did the class clown take it too far? Pulled out a chair from underneath the kid thinking it would be really funny when the kid fell. The kid ended up falling and cracking his head open and getting around 30 stitches. I did this to a kid in middle school and he hit his head on the metal part of the chair. The teacher was like, walk him down to the nurse, while he was walking slowly and holding his head acting super hurt. I felt like an asshole. Then we got out of the room and he was like, aha, I'm fine, duck you. He got me. Edit. Look, I'm not proud of this, but he didn't die. I was 12 and we were watching Space Jam in class that day, so I was extra hype. Lit a Roman candle on our bus ride home. Cops showed up and he went right out the back door and kept running. Never came back to school. Edit. To answer some of the questions about this kid, although he was always nice to me, he was a typical tough acting senior, wore a leather jacket and black combat boots to school every day. If my memory serves me correctly, one of our teachers told us the cops found him hiding in his tree fort. Hi, I'm not smart. What's a Roman candle? It's a firework that is shaped like a stick and shoots out ball-shaped fireworks. It's meant to be set down, and it will automatically shoot a certain amount of the sparkly balls out every few seconds. I always hold it, even though you're not supposed to. It can be dangerous. In a high school classroom with a chill teacher, someone made a joke about another kid's dick being small. So, that kid exposed himself in front of the whole class to prove that it was large. He got suspended. But was it though? His dick may be small, but his energy is not. He yelled at my English teacher from across the room, your puns are more cancerous than girl's name. She was terminally ill with cancer and never came back to school after that day. Well, that's just awful for everyone. Kid was always doing dumb stunts just to make people laugh. He got sick of climbing on / in random things and jumping stairs one day and decided it'd be funny to smack into walls. His first few walls were fine as they were all concrete. There was a girl crying in the hallway and he figured he could make her laugh by making a funny face and tackling the glass door. He went through the door and needed stitches, leaving splatters of blood and broken glass on the way to the office. Did it make her laugh? No, but it did distract her from what was bothering her as she was busy trying to help, so that's a plus, I suppose. That's oddly heroic. He loaded up porn on someone's computer while they were in the bathroom. Teacher wasn't paying attention and the victim ended up getting suspended. That wasn't a class clown, that was a classroom hitman. Junior year in high school in algebra 2, the teacher was kind of a douche, so this one guy, let's call him Mike, would give him a hard time. This was a regular thing, and Mike would get kicked out of class for saying and doing some inappropriate stuff, but we all thought it was hilarious. One day, our teacher didn't show up to class. Word got around that his oldest son had died of a drug overdose, and he had to take some personal time off. He didn't show back up until a week later, and he looked really sullen and down. During class, Mike pulled out a can of Coca-Cola and started sipping it nonchalantly. Teacher had a strict no eating or drinking in class policy and Mike was aware of this. He told Mike to throw it away and step outside. Mike, the absolute ducking savage, says, "Look, I know you don't like Coke, but I'm sure your son did." Nobody laughed. Just silence. Some people didn't get it. The ones who did were just too shocked to say anything like me. Mike threw his drink away and walked out of the classroom while the teacher just sort of haphazardly continued his lesson, although we could tell Mike's comments ducked him up. My story is pretty similar. The teacher was one of the nicest guys I've ever met. Really upbeat and always wanted to help out. His son wound up getting bullied a lot and committed suicide. When he came back, our class clown made a really bad joke / remark about how it was the teacher's fault that his son killed himself. Our teacher got up, walked over to the kid's desk and stopped. The kid tried to make another jab, but the guy pulled the kid out of his seat and started pummeling him and throwing him against anything he could see. Nobody in the class moved, just watched as it happened and saw this snarky kid sobbing, bleeding and just getting destroyed. Our teacher stopped, walked out of the room and we never saw him again. Apparently there were a bunch of lawsuits and the kid had to go to the hospital for a bunch of wounds, but it was definitely the most intense class I've been a part of. I wouldn't even sue if I was the parent. I'd be ashamed and embarrassed my kid did that. There are buttons you just don't push. Wow. This one kid thought it would be funny to snort a line of that sour powder. This was no small line, mind you. I actually think he was rubbing it off the candy. Anyways, he does his line and instantly starts screaming. His nose was gushing blood and I honestly think he popped a blood vessel in his eye, ran out of the room and later saw an ambulance come to the school. Don't do drugs. My high school class clown made a joke in a dead silent classroom about boning a teacher with another teacher in the room. His situation afterwards wasn't great. We had a teacher in middle school who had a wig and a glass eye. We had 3 class clowns that teamed up, and at the end of the year, she left just because of their constant disruptions and bullying. I actually really liked her and always felt bad for her. Called our teacher's daughter whose name is Maya Khalifa. The teacher then proceeded to search up Maya Khalifa in front of the whole class. Yeah, a teacher of mine said I don't know who that is in the most unconvincing way possible. He tried to pants the teacher. I think I've seen this porn. It was actually his step-teacher. Ate a shit ton of notebook paper and ended up going home after he projectile vomited on the goddamn floor. When I was in 3rd grade we were all doing our thing, coloring, reading, etc. The class clown was being really noisy and kept goofing off. We were all having fun and the class clown eventually sat down. It wasn't long before he was laying on the floor, foaming out of his mouth, shaking violently. We all laughed. It was a joke, right? Before long the teacher came rushing over to see the new joke the kid came up with. She immediately called 911 and he was rushed out of the room. He had a seizure while the whole class thought he was joking. He recovered and everything was fine. I just feel bad for the kid. Holy frick, that's terrifying to imagine. Imagine saying help, I can't breathe, and your friends are just like haha, good one. Then you pass out and shit goes down. Oh my god, that's freaky. When he yelled I lost my virginity to my dog during a quiet moment in class, every head whipped around to stare in horror. AHHH, a wasp. He then proceeded to throw an entire ducking desk at it. The wasp perched on the window. Whoops. Someone in my year at school who wanted to be a doctor drank a bottle of antibacterial hand wash for $5. He did it because there is nothing bad in there, his words. Needless to say, he got his stomach pumped. I'm sure he gained valuable insights into his future career. This kid downed 9 ibuprofens in like 3 minutes because the teacher left the room. He managed to get a headache from it. It wasn't really funny, it was just sad. That's like 1800 milligrams. That's a shit ton of ibuprofen. What compelled him to do that? This other kid, I was not in a good class, although I was mostly good in this class. No one else really was. Said something like I have ibuprofen and someone dared him to get high off it. I was too disappointed, plus by the time I caught wind he was at 4 to explain how impossible that was. It was years ago, so I don't remember the details very well. I know it was at least 5 ibuprofen, but was probably closer to 7. Kid class clown in elementary school made fun of a boy no one liked. He was kinda an asshole, but one day the boy said his mom had a miscarriage and the other kid thought it would be a great insult later in the week to tell him something along the lines of your brother is better off dead, it's a good thing your mom had a miscarriage. Don't think we've ever rallied for this asshole kid as hard as we did that day. Not cool. My friend's father took his own life when we were about 7 years old. A nasty boy in the class said I would kill myself too if I was your dad. It was ducking awful. Kid in my band class still thought Yo Mama jokes were funny. We came back to school for the first time after Hurricane Sandy, and the kid goes to the teacher, Yo Mama res, and the teacher cuts him off, died in the hurricane. The kid never told another one of those jokes in that class. My sophomore year of high school, it was an English class and there were 4 class clowns in the same class. Second semester of school, so it was shortly after I'd been switched from one teacher's class to the new one. During the first semester, there was a student a grade below us that had committed suicide, and the year before that my cousin had done the same. Teacher walked out of the classroom to take something to get printed or something and left the only senior in the class in charge. Both she and I were close to the deceased freshman's family and had struggled with his death together. Not a minute after the teacher left, two of the clowns got up and went over to the windows, grabbed the pull string to the blinds, and used it as a noose to hang themselves. Some kids laughed, some kids told them to knock it off, a few just wanted to finish their worksheets, but I had to leave the classroom and I passed the teacher in the hall. She saw I was crying and asked what happened. I was trying to explain while sobbing when the senior came out after chewing the clowns a new one and explained to the teacher what had happened. She actually escorted everyone except the clowns out of the classroom so she wouldn't disturb the other classes around us with how much and how loudly she yelled at them. It's interesting to hear suicide stories from other perspectives. At my school we had many suicides, and at one point a person at my lunch table who I was close with had his family murdered in front of him by his uncle. He survived by luck alone. No reason he should still be alive. The immediate reaction of all of us who knew him was to start making as many dark jokes as possible about the situation within a day of it occurring, while he also made jokes himself. But in an odd way, there was an unspoken understanding that the jokes were only okay because we all knew him. People who didn't know him were frowned upon by those who did for making similar jokes. I don't really have a takeaway from all of this, just figured I'd share, since your story brought up the memory. On a lighter note, it was always fun to see the look on a teacher's face when making really dark jokes about his recently murdered parents brought him genuine joy. He was just happy to share an origin story with Batman. I knew a guy, high school student in the late 60s. He and his best friend were very close, but had also dated the same girl. My buddy dated this girl first, now the friend was dating her. No problems, but they both understood how this could be perceived as a potential friendship ender. They had a joke all planned out. The best friend grabbed some ketchup packets from a fast food restaurant. After lunch, he was sitting in class with the packets torn slightly, tucked unnoticeably in his hand. My buddy had the starter pistol from the track and field team. You see where this is going. My buddy ran into the classroom and shouted, "You can't steal my girl from me. If I can't have her, no one can." He fired the starter pistol filled with blanks, not bullets, in the direction of his best friend. The friend, who had jumped up from his desk during the shouting, clutched his chest from the fake bullet wound, sending horrifying streaks of red ketchup flying all over his white t-shirt. He collapsed. The look of horror on the face of every student in the room, my buddy said, was amazing. He and his best friend both got detention. Sometimes I think about this story, and I wonder what would happen if high school students tried this in a post-Columbine world. It's crazy how much times change in just a couple of generations. Yeah, in context of the time, that's actually a pretty great prank tbh. It just hasn't aged well. When our science teacher went into the lab closet and he blocked the door with a filing cabinet. Then later in the year he got caught as he was about to put baby oil on the floor. I mean the kid blocked the teacher inside the closet. There was a story here in the UK not so long ago about some kid who was ducking around in class and flicking bits of food at people. He threw a bit of cheese at this kid, who it turned out had severe allergies and ended up going into anaphylactic shock. School mishandled it quite a bit, and the poor kid ended up dying. Not sure if this is exactly a case of the class clown taking it too far. He wasn't to know. But the consequences were dire even so. Holy shit. I had my moments of class clownery. The only one I really regret all these years later was from middle school. My science teacher was telling us his story about dealing with bullies. Back in his day, some punks were messing with him and his friends and he confronted them. At some point in the exchange, he said something like, "Come at me anytime, I'm not hard to find." I'm paraphrasing. For some reason my dumb brain thought not hard to find, easy to spot, so large that you can see him from anywhere. Looking for a laugh, I spoke up and said, "Why, were you fat?" There was some muffled laughter, but all I really remember was the teacher topping almost mid-sentence, staring daggers at me, face red as hell. He stopped his story, turned to his desk, and told us curtly to just work on homework. He barely said anything the rest of the class. I felt like absolute shit. It didn't register to me that, yeah, maybe he struggled with his weight as a kid and that was part of the bullying. I really didn't imagine he was a fat kid or anything. It was just a play on the easy to find mental image. Duck. I apologized as best I could at the end of class, but it was tense. At the end of the year he actually awarded me a Best Science Student Award or something like that. You know how they'll do a bunch of student awards for attendance and other shit. I think the fact that he did that means he forgave me, but I still feel like a massive heel every time I think about that. Ouch. At least you apologized without being made to apologize. I'm sure he realized that you realized you were a dick. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please subscribe to my channel for more curated daily Reddit stories.